Today we're going to go over tuples. These are the second data structure we will talk about in this series. And the way they differ from lists is in the sense that lists can be changed, while tuples cannot be changed. Because of that, tuples are faster than lists in processing and better to protect your data since they are immutable. The way to create a tuple is enclosing the values in parentheses and separating them with commas. So let me just create a variable name, my tuple, and then I'll surround my tuple content in parentheses. Now let me just put some random information here to showcase which values tuples are able to hold. So like lists, to access a value in a tuple, you would write the tuple's name and add inside the square brackets which index you want to access. So for example, if I want to get the third item in my tuple, I would type in my tuple and then at index 0, 1, 2, this would return. If I print this out, I'll get the value 4.44. If you want to access a sequence of values in your tuple, you can pass two indexes in the square brackets, being the first where the sequence starts, and the second value which is 1 over what will be returned. So for example, if I want to retain these two values, 4.44 and the boolean true, I would put either the fourth index, which would be 1 over, or I could leave this blank. And then since it's blank, it will return until all values until the end of the tuple. Alternatively, if you leave the first index empty and then you put in the final index, it will return all the values in your tuple from the first one until one less than this second index number. So it returns to us index 0 and index 1 with these values. Now, I've already mentioned that tuples cannot be changed while lists can. However, what if I have a list inside my tuple? Let's try to make a change to the list, to the following list, and see what happens. So now let me try to append the value fourth to this list, which is inside our tuple. To do that, I would need to access the fourth data item inside of our tuple. And then this is a reference to a list, so I can very well use the method append and write inside of it whatever it is I want to be appended. Now when I print my updated tuple, oh, pardon me, 0, 1, 2, 3, and as you can see now, the word fourth is appended to the item on index 3. You can see that the value fourth was indeed appended to the list because even if the list is inside a tuple, the list is still a changeable data structure. So tuples are fairly simple precisely because they are immutable. The first method I want to show you is the index method. It will pass inside the method whatever you were looking for, and this method will give you its index location inside the tuple. So if there are multiple instances of this item you're looking for, the index method will return you the lowest index. So say for example that I alter my tuple to include, instead of a list, the number 444, and then I want to print the location, the index location of the number 4.44. You can see here that it prints out the first occurrence of this number and not the last one. Next, the count method will return you how many times this particular data goes on inside our tuple. It goes on twice. And the next three functions are called sum, min, and max, can only be used on tuples that have numbers only or booleans inside of them. And as you might have guessed, the sum function, pardon me, the sum function is used to retrieve the whole sum of values inside our tuple. So let me just remove this string, otherwise we would have an error. And I want to print the sum of my tuple. You can see here the sum is printed. I want to print the max value inside our tuple, which is 4.44, and then the minimum value with the function min is number 2. Now, why is it that if I add a Boolean value inside these operations, these functions, these mathematical functions still go on, still work properly? So let me just print the sum like this, and you can see here that when I remove this true value, the total sum, which was 11.88, goes to 10.88. And the reason for that is that a Boolean value true is translated mathematically into a binary value of 1, while the false Boolean is translated into a 0. Lastly, we have the len function, which will return the length or how many data entries are inside of your data structure. And just to show you something that you haven't already seen, let me again add a list inside our tuple to show you what I want to showcase what I'm talking about. So now if I print the length of my tuple, you can see here that it says I have 4 elements, being that we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. They are included into one data structure. So actually this list is considered one data entry. That's why we get a value of 4 when we print the length of this tuple. Now let's just jump into a couple of exercises. Okay, so given the following tuple, print the average of its values and try to use the methods that I showcase here today. And pause the video now and I'll give you a couple of seconds to try it. Okay, so the solution that I came up with is we gotta print the average of these values. So the average is nothing but the total sum of these values divided by the number of items in this list. So for the sum, we can use the sum function. We're using the sum of my tuple, and we are dividing it by the length or the amount of objects inside this tuple. And when you can see that the average value is 3. Indeed, the total sum is 18 and there are 6 values inside of it. So this is correct. Now let's hop over to the second exercise. Okay, so given the following tuple, print the quantity of values in the second list. So in this portion of the tuple, this second list here that has 5 elements, how would you go about finding out the count of this list? Pause the video now and I'll show you the solution in a bit. So the solution that I came up with is we gotta print the amount of characters inside this list, and as you can remember, you can use the len function with lists as well. So you'd have to pass inside of this len function the object of which you want to retrieve the amount of data entries. And to get there, we need to access a sub item of this tuple, and to use that, we just need to pass in here the index of such item, in which case this tuple has 1 and 2 items, so this is in index 1. And when you print it out, you can see here that you have 5 numbers inside of this list. So I hope you were able to do it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.